I mean, I have seen this. That I did obviously know about Marc Wadsworth before, but I haven't really looked into this case very much before. Mark, are you there?
I'm here.
Great. That's the first thing that we need. If you weren't here, that would have been really difficult. What I've put is we've done a survey to the people who subscribe to Labour Grassroots and not the Andrew Marr Show, and this was one of the poll findings here. I hope it's not hieroglyphics. Do you know the circumstances behind Marc Wadsworth's expulsion from the Labour Party? Yes, 58%, no, 38%, and other 4%. So 38% of people on this subscriber list who would be mostly left in the Labour Party, left as you say in the Labour Party, they don't know what happened with your expulsion. Could you tell us the circumstances behind it? Because as far as I could see, it was a kind of a policy announcement, and you were in the back of the room and you said something to the room, and then that was enough. Is that correct?
Well, what happened was it was the launch of the Shami Chakrabarti report into anti-Semitism and forms of racism in the Labour Party. And it wasn't actually a news conference, because party members in London had been invited along for the launch of the report, as you quite rightly said. And bizarrely, the party decided to invite the media as well. I was there because I was representing an organization called Momentum Black Connections, which was the sort of black section of Momentum back in those days. And we'd made a submission to the inquiry, and I was there to distribute a sort of statement about where we stood. And don't forget, this was happening in June 2016, just after the chicken coup against Jeremy Corbyn, when 172 treacherous right-wing Labour MPs had supported a motion of no confidence in the leader. So it was a very febrile atmosphere. And my organization was very keen to demonstrate its support for Jeremy, who was at that launch. And whilst distributing the statement, I observed a person who I later learned was a Labour MP, Ruth Smith, consorting with Kate McCann from the Daily Telegraph, a viciously anti-Labour, anti-Jeremy Corbyn newspaper. And they seemed to be on very friendly terms. And so I remarked at the beginning of when I spoke, and it took ages for me to be called, there seemed to be a reluctance to call me. And I actually pointed out to Shami Chakrabarti, who was chairing the meeting, that no black speakers had been called, and she reluctantly called me. And I said that I'd just seen a Labour MP, Ruth Smith, working hand in glove with the Daily Telegraph, which was disturbing. And then I went on to say, and look around this room, we're supposed to be discussing fighting discrimination in the Labour Party. How many African, Caribbean and Asian people are there in this room? And there were just very few. And Jeremy Corbyn latched onto my remarks and said, yes, we've got work to do as the Labour Party in terms of making the party more representative. So he supported what I had to say. So I'd made a quite unremarkable, I thought, comment about what I'd observed about the collusion between a Daily Telegraph reporter and a Labour MP. And Smith then staged a walkout from the meeting, followed by a posse of press, including McCann, including John Pienaar from the BBC. It looked like a setup job, actually. And then she posted on her website a disgusting statement saying that I had used an anti-Semitic trope about Jews controlling the media. I mean, quite how you fabricate that out of my, I think it was less than 60-second remark, which is fortunately was recorded, so people can take a look at that clip. It is just unfathomable. And she said a Momentum activist, she didn't name me, had been guilty of this, and it was disgraceful that Jeremy Corbyn hadn't come to her defense, and he was therefore unfit to be leader of the Labour Party and should resign. So I was collateral damage in this faction fight between the right wing and the left. And I was immediately, my membership was cancelled that day, and I had to take on lawyers who got that cancellation reversed, but I was immediately suspended and kept suspended for almost 2 years before my case went before the National Constitutional Committee, which after a 3-day hearing, which was just a kangaroo court, expelled me from the Labour Party.
Well, so one comment that you made was interpreted as a trope, an anti-Semitic trope, ended up with you becoming expelled. And what is it that what have you been doing that made people threatened by you? What's your background? Can you tell people your background? Why would you be a threat to people to want you expelled in that way, do you think?
My record in the Labour Party extends to the late 70s. In 1983, I helped found the Labour Party Black Sections, which was an unofficial body. Neil Kinnock and his right-wing leadership of Roy Hattersley and others bitterly opposed African, Caribbean, Asian people getting organized in a caucus within the party to get greater political representation. And I went on to become the leader of the Black Sections for a couple of years. So I was sort of public enemy #1 for the Kinnockites. We actually won in the end. Black Sections became the Labour Party Black Socialist Society, all but in name the Black Sections. And 4 of our members were elected to Parliament, made history in 1987. Paul Boateng, Bernie Grant, Diane Abbott and Keith Vaz got elected. So that put me on a hit list. I was very active on the left of the Labour Party I'm proud to say that Graham Bash is here today, and solidarity to you, comrade, in your situation of having been expelled as well, and to Pamela and to Joe, who are here. And then after that, in 1991, I founded the Anti-Racist Alliance, which went on to become Britain's largest Black-led movement. Now reformed it, not calling it the same name, the Liberation Movement. So I hope you'll all go online and you can see the website on my T-shirt here and help us build this extra parliamentary movement. I helped Doreen and Neville Lawrence set up their Justice for Stephen Lawrence campaign after Stephen Lawrence, a black teenager, was brutally murdered by white thugs in southeast London, and led a campaign to close down the BNP's Nazi bunker in Welling in southeast London. For my sins, I was put on a paramilitary group of the BNP's Combat 18 death list. They said they would kill me and others, including Ken Livingstone, Narendra Makanji, and I had to have security to stay alive. So I suppose that's marked me out as part of the awkward squad, part of the resistance, well, I mean and someone that the right wing wouldn't want in the Labour Party.
But your background, I mean, I can't think of anyone who's done more in the Labour Party to combat racism, and how you were not given a platform to speak at that meeting in the first place, and you said you couldn't get in anyway, and then you said something and it was misinterpreted. It's an appalling situation. But I did want to show you a couple of polls as well that might show you that you're not seen in a bad light by many comrades here. For example, this is to show that you should be on this program in the first place. Do you think Marc Wadsworth should have a platform to tell his story? 96% believe that you should. Do you think Marc Wadsworth should have been expelled from the Labour Party? Yes, 4%. And the rest, 75% no, and 21% is a lot of don't knows because they didn't know the circumstances. This question is something I'd like to ask you. Do you think Jeremy Corbyn should have done more to protect you from expulsion? Yes, 72%. No, 28%. That question is quite interesting to me because do you think pressure on Jeremy Corbyn was such that he couldn't do anything to help you? Why do you think he couldn't help you?
Well, I know that he was questioned about this at the Campaign for Labour Party Democracy annual general meeting yesterday, when it was asked by Comrade Deborah Hobson of Grassroots Black Left, the co-leader of that, why he didn't put himself at the head of an anti-witch hunt campaign, which I believe he was or is still the best person to do that because of the huge support he still continues to have, not just in the left of the Labour Party, but throughout the country. And he said that he thought that it was the grassroots job to lead a campaign. Now, I don't quite know how an army can be leaderless, not have a general leading it. I think he should be at the forefront. And I think that there was too much capitulation, appeasement, and apology towards the right-wing enemy. We should have gone after them. They should have been dealt with. Look how ruthless Keir Starmer has been. In just weeks, that undertaker sent in by the establishment to bury the Labour Party has purged the left on the NEC, in the party as a whole, with his sidekick, sadly from Croydon, where I am, David Evans. It took 3 years for Corbyn and Lotto, the leader of the opposition's office, to get rid of the saboteur within, Ian McNicol, the General Secretary. And that was only after John Landsman, the leader of Momentum, joined the NEC and demanded that McNicol should go. Look at the role played by the saboteurs. Emily Oldknow, in a senior position at party headquarters, quoted in the dossier as working night and day, and others, for Labour to lose a general election. Tom Watson, the deputy leader, the saboteur-in-chief, tolerated. In fact, there was a move by Corbyn to put him in the House of Lords after he ceased being the deputy leader. I mean, what is that? We deserved, as people taking a bullet for Jeremy Corbyn, his solidarity and public support, and we didn't get it. And I think we need answers as to why not just him, but the whole of the left failed to vigorously fight the witch hunt. CLPD, Labour Representation Committee, all these great bodies should have made it a primary priority to oppose this wicked attack on the left, and they didn't. And we're suffering the consequences as a result.
Well, I think it's that what's happened. I mean, people are being suspended and expelled now for association with people who had been expelled or suspended before, and those people who were expelled or suspended before were expelled or suspended for association with someone else. And you're like the grandfather of the whole expulsion chain, because once you're like Chris Williamson was associated with you, and then if you associate with Chris Williamson, then we have to. Do you think it's important that we go back over to the front of this whole thing, the start of this thing, with you and Ken Livingstone and those first initial expulsions? Do you think it's important we go back to that?
We have to learn the lessons from what we did wrong as the left, I think. Ken didn't receive solidarity. He was encouraged by Jeremy Corbyn to resign from the party, the argument being that if he did that, it would help Jeremy get into number 10, which I think was wrong-headed. Ken is very popular, not just in London, where he used to be the mayor and the leader of the Greater London Council as a progressive leader. And he has huge support and should have been supported by Jeremy. What does Jeremy say? He said, oh, he made the right decision by resigning. Look what happened to Chris Williamson, a magnificent comrade in terms of solidarity that he gave to me and others who have been witch hunted. He was Jeremy's most loyal MP. He'd go to every meeting, the Wednesday PLP meetings, Parliamentary Labour Party meetings, to support Jeremy against very aggressive and hostile attack. And yet he, like Jackie Walker, Ken, myself, we were thrown under a bus as expendable. And you had the spectacle of John McDonnell, someone for whom I had great respect as a solid socialist, making, sort of wooing sounds about, Alistair Campbell would be welcome back in the party. The big saboteur of the Blair years and Lib Dem supporter, kicked out of the party for supporting the Lib Dems, opponents of the Labour Party. So the whole strategy seemed to be arse about face, if you'll excuse my French. Supporting the right wing, not taking disciplinary action against Margaret Hodge, who shouted at Jeremy Corbyn in public in Parliament that he was a fucking anti-Semite and a racist. If you did that in the workplace, you would be immediately suspended if you spoke to your boss like that for gross misconduct. Yet it was McDonnell saying, we mustn't take any action against Margaret Hodge. We were always tiptoeing around the enemy rather than crushing them in the way that they eventually crushed us. And I think that was a very wrong strategy.
Can I just ask you, I'd like to know what the impact of the smear and your expulsion has been. I mean, how have you faced life since that expulsion 3 years ago?
Like all of the people who've been witch hunted, it's had a massive effect on our mental health, how we're perceived in public. I mean, I suffered 5 years of trial by media, culminating in me having to take action for libel against the Jewish Chronicle, which I won, substantial damages and an apology. So, we've been targets. I've been attacked verbally on public transport by lunatics who've shouted that I'm an anti-Semite and shouldn't be on the planet. I've been abused and trolled online, called a black cunt and all sorts of other abuse, and told that I should be deported back to Africa. A lot of racist abuse. And it's just awful. It's devastating, the effect not just on yourself, but your friends and your family. And we're traumatized. And often we have to talk with each other for a sort of catharsis, a therapy. It has a devastating effect. And that human cost can't be overstated.
Yeah. No, I don't know if you're up for this or not, but we've had lots of people who want to send you messages of solidarity. Are you okay to receive some messages here?
Oh,
seeing as you've had to go through all that.
Yes. What, they want my email address?
No, they just want to speak to you here. Tosh McDonald is on the call. Tosh.
Thanks, Crispin. And hiya, comrade. I just want to say, just let people know, comrades know who are listening, how I got to meet Mark. A fine comrade, and I don't think you'll find a better one. And I am actually wearing the T-shirt you gave me, your own T-shirt, if you remember, comrade.
Yeah.
It was at Labour Party conference in Liverpool. I think it was in 2018, maybe something like that. And when I'm at Labour Party conference, now people who know me know I like a drink, but I would never drink at Labour Party conference because I don't trust some of the people around there. So I know Mark met some of my ASLEF colleagues, General Secretary and others, and you had a nice drink with them in the afternoon, and it was the ASLEF stroke Cooperative Party reception in the afternoon. Now, basically, ASLEF helped fund that, the Cooperative Party proposed it. Because I don't drink, I was asked if I could look after Mark, accompany Mark, and see he was all right. But I found we both suffered some hostility that day from members of the Cooperative Party. The right wing who were in there, I think there's a lot in the Cooperative Party, are on the right of the party. And some of the abuse that Mark suffered and the things that was said, I found it horrendous, absolutely horrendous. As I left, because I left before Mark, and as I left, I was abused, I was shouted at, told myself I was an anti-Semite because I was with you. And as I was getting out and into a taxi, I turned around face to face with one of them, as you usually find with these people. When I give them a 2-word response, the second one was off and the first one started with F. They shut up and move away. They're in a big gang. You're right that we needed the left as a united body should have stood up to the smears that were taking place. Mark, when I met you that day, you invited me to come and speak at a Justice for Mark meeting. I was proud to do that, along with my good comrade Chris Williamson. Matt Clive Lewis also spoke on that platform, as I remember. And then people were leaving from there to go to the screen of Witch Hunt. And then because of bomb scares and things, that had to be taken away. But what I just want to finish, and I will be really quick, Crispin, is I will never forget when your hearing was taking place, just before I'd met you. And I saw that white, angry mob going down to the hearing, going down there shouting. Let's not mince words what that was. It was a fucking lynch mob. Yeah. No ifs, no buts. We've seen white, angry mobs going to a black man's hearing many times in history. It's never ended well. And we need to make it quite clear that the lack of evidence coming out and the Ford report not coming out, there is this party, the Labour Party, is racist. It's a white supremacist party. It's becoming that more and more. And comrade, I will always stand with you. I can't wait till we get a pint together in person sometime. We will do once COVID and things finally gone and I'm travelling about more. Solidarity, Mark, forever.
Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Tosh. You've been an amazing supporter ever since we met on social media. Comrade Tosh is always there. He's introduced me to people in ASLEF and across the trade union movement. In fact, I do believe, Comrade, you hosted a meeting for black miners in the North, bringing their existence to public knowledge. And so that is what I call solidarity. That's what it looks like. It's solidarity in action rather than just in words. And I applaud you and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the support you've given, not just me, but also Comrade Chris Williamson.
Thank you. Look, I've got more messages for you here, Tosh. Sorry, not Tosh. Mark, Giorgio, are you there? Oh God, hold on a sec. Giorgio, are you there?
I am. I'm just going to come on. I'm just going to start my video.
Okay. Well, yeah. There you go.
Hi there, everyone. Yeah, just a normal member, I suppose. I met Mark back in probably 2015, sort of at some demonstration or other that was happening in central London. And I suppose what I want to say is this is a travesty of justice, as in not only have we got video evidence for the whole event that was said to be the issue behind Mark's suspension, but at no point at any element of that event did he do anything that he was accused of. It's a total travesty of justice, and you know there's no natural justice. until people like Mark get resolved. And I'm not saying that others didn't have the same issue as Mark, but Mark seems to me personally a bit like the Rosa Parks, that there was nothing they could hang on Mark, yet they still managed to suspend and expel him. Whereas the others, you could say, you know, that Ken has got an abrasive way of dealing with people. You could say that Jackie Walker may or may not have said something out of turn. There was nothing with Mark, and that's where I think our solidarity must stay with people like him, because if he's thrown out of the party, then there's no hope for anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Giorgio, and you've been a fantastic supporter as well. I think it's the South Coast, Brighton, where we did some activism together, and
as well. Yes.
I think we were actually out there on a Labour Party stall, weren't we, doing something with full rough sleepers. I mean, you know, quite apart from just anti-racism work, you work right across the piece in terms of promoting socialist solidarity. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. And we've got Leah Levain as well is on the call and wanted to make to speak to you. Leah, are you there?
Hello. Oh, I didn't know you can bring me in. Great. Nice to see you, Mark. Mark
Nice
came
to
and
see you,
spoke in Hastings
comment.
recently, launching his wonderful book, which someone has put in the chat, might do it so again. So I just wanted to say a couple of things. I'm very aware that people like Mark, like Tony Greenstein, Jackie Walker, Ken Livingstone, the attacks on them predated organising, predated Labour Against the Witch Hunt, which of course is a heinous organisation now. It predated Jewish Voice for Labour. So a lot of these comrades were very much on their own until people found out, you know, so I know my own CLP, and I've seen in the chat several CLPs did pass motions in support of Mark. As Giorgio said, if you look at the video of what happened,
oh no, Leah's Wi-Fi is playing up again. Oh, yeah, Leah's Wi-Fi. It's the famous Leah Wi-Fi issue here. I'll try and get back to you again, Leah. But your Wi-Fi is legendary. It does start well, and it starts going a bit slow. Then it disappears. But I'm going to bring in. We've got Carl Freeman as well. Would like to speak to you. Carl, are you there?
Unmute. Am I on?
Yeah.
Mark, we've not met, but I have followed your case with interest and horror, I think, since it first arose. So just a couple of points from me, really, before I get to the main one. First of which was the context for all of this. We're talking about the 30th of June, after 6 months, of which in January, Stephen Doughty resigned on air, working with Laura Kunsberg to resign live on air while Jeremy Corbyn was speaking in the Prime Minister's questions in the House. So there was a track record of Corbyn's opponents working with the media, exactly as you called out Ruth Smith for on the 30th of June. So I think people forget that what you were drawing attention to was somebody working with, you know, and the Telegraph, amongst other things, of all things. And the second point I want to make, I suppose, is around the stain of anti-Semitism. So Ruth Smith, as you well know, referred to anti-Semitism on her statement after the incident, the manufactured incident, but that didn't appear in either her statement when you were expelled or the Labour Party statement. But there were still people that were saying that you were sent out, well, you were evicted for anti-Semitism, including, what was their name again? Anna Turley, who was a Labour MP. And I took her to task on Twitter because she basically said you were expelled for anti-Semitism. I did actually, she's no longer an MP, she's still on Twitter. I sent her a message last night, knowing that I might be speaking to you today, to ask her if she stood by those remarks. I actually put that in the context of your victory against the Jewish Chronicle. She hasn't yet replied to me, so I don't know whether she's still holding the lie that you were expelled for anti-Semitism. But my main point, all the work you did for Doreen and Neville Lawrence, tireless in your campaign for them. Have you had any support from Doreen? And if not, are you disappointed in that?
Okay. Well, it's on people's lips that there are people, not just Doreen, who is a baroness, she's in the House of Lords, but also the Black MPs. I mean, apart from Keith Vaz and Clive Lewis, silence, radio silence. And it's not as if I hadn't spoken to David Lammy, Dawn Butler, Marsha de Cordova. Diane Abbott was at the launch and ran into a room and locked herself in a room and ran away. Her former head of office, who's now the Member of Parliament for Streatham, Belle Ribeiro Addy, told me that Diane and her had sat in Diane's office and watched that 60-second clip over and over again and said, but Mark did nothing wrong. But I didn't hear their voices raised above the parapet saying that. And Comrade Graham Bash said to me, he's an old friend of mine, a dear colleague, someone that I love dearly politically. What's so remarkable about my case is that nobody of significance on the left spoke out in my support, that there was a deafening silence. I haven't asked Doreen for help or support. I recognize that she's very focused on the issue of murders of young Black people like her son, Stephen. And so, you know, she's not someone that I've reached out to for support. So I don't know what her position is. She doesn't tend to talk about wider Labour issues. She's quite focused on her particular, you could call it a brief. So I don't want to condemn people that I haven't asked for support from.
Okay. There's more. Mark, there's lots of messages, but I'm going to keep bringing them in for you. Okay. Here's Mandy Parry. Are you there, Mandy? People have their hands up, but these are people who wrote back to say they'd like to speak. I'm going to bring in Tony Booth.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's good to see you, Mark.
Yes.
And I know we spent some time together.
Yeah.
I want to focus on the smear. I want to focus on the smear because I don't think the hearing, the investigation, the suspension, the expulsion would have happened if that smear hadn't taken hold. Mm. And I see what happened to you as one of the key elements in putting together the big lie of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. I've described it as a sort of time when the tumblers of the lock kind of moved into place. Because once you've persuaded a mass of people to believe something as ludicrous as the suggestion that anything you said or did during that hearing was remotely anti-Semitic, once you've persuaded to believe some absurdity like that, they'll believe anything. Mm. You know, it ranks alongside, you know, Margaret Hodges' parading of 200 cases of anti-Semitism, which actually, of Labour Party anti-Semitism, which turned out to be only concerning 20 Labour members. But people don't remember that. It was, you know, this mass of anti-Semitism in the party. And I think that another major event was the House of Commons Select Committee investigation on anti-Semitism,
Yes.
which started off as being about anti-Semitism in political parties, and through Chaka Amuna's manipulation ended up as an investigation of Labour Party anti-Semitism. It completely changed its terms of references, and yet somehow that was allowed to stand. But alongside the big lie of anti-Semitism in the party stands this blind evasion of the presence of anti-Black racism in the party. And anyone with a fair eye, like Tosh MacDonald said, anyone with a fair eye looking at what happened to you, and I notice you don't say, this was a racist attack on me. No. But anyone with a fair eye looking from the outside would say, this was blatant racism. Yes. How could people not say, contrast, what at worst was a tiny impoliteness on your part, if you like, and then contrast that, which was the mass attack on you. And as Tosh MacDonald said, 30 white people storming towards your hearing, 30 white MPs, and not call this out as racism, it is remarkable. I mean, you know, we have the Labour Party is weird on racism. Zahra Sultana announces that, tells people that she has been suffering revolting racist attacks, and while some people immediately leap to her support, you know, the leader of the party, Keir Starmer, says nothing. Yeah. The same with the mass attacks on Diane Abbott. And I started looking at, you know, I think if there was an impoliteness, it was only when Ruth Smith said to you, could you hand me a copy of the leaflet? And, you know, she'd been involved in this chicken coup, I think the day before. Well, you weren't minded to give her one. If that was impolite, okay. But you contrast that with what was going on weekly in the Labour, in the Parliamentary Labour Party meetings, where one person stood in front of Richard Bergen's face and shouted the C word repeatedly into his face. I mean, how was that MP still in the party? Or when Andy Kennedy got up to speak because he was supporting Jeremy, you know, didn't like this disgusting behavior, there were cries of, oh, here comes Thicko. You know, so it's the smear, the big lie, and then the refusal to address racism in the party, which I wanted to draw attention to. And it's interesting that there is a bit of a connection here, because Ruth Smith, who was behind this confection of the anti-Semitic smear against you, then became deputy director of Hope Not Hate. And we've had that another anti-Semitic smear against Joe Solo, which was talked about on a program last week, coming from Hope Not Hate. But anyway, my solidarity is continues to be with you, Mark, and sometime or other, this absurdity, the absurdities which put together the big lie, will be exposed for what they are and what they were. Solidarity to you, Mark.
Thank you, Comrade Tony, and you've been a great supporter. Thank you for your help over the years. It's much appreciated.
I'm timing it now, okay? If you get to 1 minute 59, I'm cutting you off, right? That's the rules. Peter, that's your task. Can you do 2 minutes, Peter?
Well, I'll have to, won't I? It's interesting because when I was a BAME officer for the Labour Party, I was there for a purpose for my own community, right, which is Roma, by the way, Mark. And one of the things that we're finding within Europe now is, for the first time, is because we're now operating online, is that we're finding a slight divide within the Roma communities. And it's being fostered by a Middle East government. And they're trying to put a divide between the Muslims and the Christians within the Roma community. And I see that being played out all over the place. And so it's made me go off and study a bit of history a bit more, and which has been interesting. And one of the histories I've been looking at is Italy, obviously, Mussolini and the rise of fascism and stuff like that. It's easy to call something fascist. It's a very easy slogan. But what's behind it is the interesting bit, and the tools they use. And your community and my community are some of the tools they use. And I think we really got our heads between our legs if we honestly believe that this is not the tool they're using now. And that Keir Starmer, who, one of the reasons I have been terminated from the Labour Party is because I said, right, I've sent that many emails to that man and to Margaret Beckett and to my own MP, which I had an email I was going to read out earlier, but it doesn't matter. And to several other bods in these hierarchy positions, and none of them ever talked to me. And it's about my community, about racism, it's about BAME, etc., etc. So I got a bit fed up, so I said the gloves are off with you, Keir, now. And I think that's that kind of that sort of really kicked it into dust, and they just found 2 weeks worth of my nonsense, and that was me booted out or terminated. As regards fighting outside, I've always fought outside. You know, my mother used to strap me to the front of I'll let that go. My mother used to strap me to the front of shafts, hoping that the local Muskers police, that is, wouldn't take our wagons away. Well, of course they bloody well did. They're abusive bastards. End of subject. You know, we have a real problem with the law of this country, because we've seen the manipulation that they carry out in the guise of the community. So yeah, I don't know what I'm saying to you, Mark. It's apart from the fact that I do understand every bit of it. You know, it's a shit place to be, but I think we need to solidate with each other. I'm with Chris Williamson on this. You know, we need to start talking outside of our groups with each other and fight for a better future. And I don't think it's in the Labour Party, to be truthful. That's my personal view. Thank you very much for listening.
Can I give you solidarity, comrade, as someone who spent part of his childhood on a traveller's site, haven't spoken much about it in the past, in Hersham, on Lee. It was the Lees, the Coopers, the Critchleys. You probably know some of these families, these fine...
That's one of them on the bloody phone now.
Solidarity with and traveller community from me. I feel I'm a part of you. And I can remember the bailiffs coming in, backed up by the bully boy police, to evict people from their caravan, and the fight back from the community. Challenging, you know, when it was a neighbour who was being evicted, and standing in solidarity with them, and sometimes beating back the local authority, bully boys, bailiffs, and cops. So you have my support, and anytime I can be of any assistance, please let me know.
I'll take you on that, brother. I will have a rocker together as well. Yeah, thank you very much, Crispin, as usual.